Hi, in this video I'll be sharing the process of cutting and sewing of this beautiful dress that you are seeing with a deep V neckline and side gathers. So if it's something you like, keep watching and let's get into the video. So I've gone ahead to mark all my vertical lines. I have my shoulder line, my bust point, my under bust line, the half length and the length of my dress. Now at this shoulder line, I'll go in by my neck width of 3 inches. I'll make a mark there. I'll also go ahead and divide the shoulder measurement by 2, which is 8. I will mark there and I'll be coming down at that point by 1 inch. Now I'll be slanting this to my neck width this way. So next, I'll go ahead and divide the bust by 6. I'll add 1.5 inches to that, and that is what I'll be using to mark my armhole. Now I'll extend this line this way, and before connecting from the shoulder slope to that point, I'll go ahead and measure what I have here. The shoulder I'm working with is 8 inches. Now I'll go ahead and replace the measurement here, and I'll mark this now into a straight line. Now I'll connect from my shoulder slope to my armhole this way. Now I'll measure what I have here. I'll get the midpoint of what I have here. I'll make a mark there, and I'll be coming out of that point by half an inch. Just come out by half an inch, and before I'll be connecting my armhole at this line here, this is my chest line, I'll go ahead and place a bust circumference measurement divided by 4. I'll place it right there at the bust line. So just go ahead and divide your bust measurement by 4, what you have just placed at your chest line, sorry. Now I'll connect these 3 points together to form my armhole. So this is what I have after connecting. Now I'll go ahead to take my waist measurement divided by 4. I'll mark that at the waistline. At the hip line also, I'll go ahead and take my hip measurements divided by 4. I'll make a mark there, and I'll be using my ruler to connect these lines. So I use this straight part of my ruler to connect from my bust to my waist, and I'm using this curvy part to connect from my waist to my knee, sorry, to my hip line. And at this point, you can decide to just draw at a straight line down there. For now, it is not really needed, just connect it this way. Next, I'll go in by the nipple to nipple measurement that I'm working with. I'm working with the nipple to nipple measurement of 7 inches. I've divided by 2 and I have 3.5. I'll mark 3.5 at the bust line, the under bust line, the waistline, the hip line, down to the length of the dress. Now I will connect. Please note that this paper, the length of the dress I'm working with is about 42 inches. And you know that this pattern paper is not as long as 42 inches. So I'm just using this for now. When I cut on my fabric, I'll be completing the length of my dress. Now at the waistline, I'll go ahead, go out on both sides of this line by half an inch. I'm going out of the dart line by half an inch on both sides, and I'll be connecting it this way to my bust points. Now at the hip line, I'll be going up from the hip line by 2 inches, and I'll use my ruler to connect it this way, as you can see. So this is what I have for the darts. This is what I have. So you can go ahead and replace the darts that you have taken. As you can see, I forgot to do that on this pattern. So right now, just go ahead and mark your bust dart of 1 inch at the bust line. I just came down by 1 inch, and I'm slanting that to this point here. So I'm shading this off. That part is going to be cut out. Also, this bust, this dart area here. I'm also going to be cutting that out. Now next, let's work on the neckline. So this neckline is supposed to be a deep one, but because I'm making this for a teenager, I just came down from the bust point by 1 inch. You can go as far as coming down from the bust point by 2 inches, or basically just go up from the under bust point by 1 inch. So from this point now, I'll be connecting this with the curve to my under bust. As you can see from the style that we are recreating. So this is how it is. So now that we are done with the shoulders and the under bust area, we are going to be working on the rest of this pattern. Now we're going to be looking at the area of the side gathers. So this is my waistline right here, and this is the center part, the part I'm touching now. So I'll be coming down by 3 inches. This is how I want mine to be. And from the center, that's the folded part of my paper, assuming it is on fold. I'll also be coming down by another 3 inches. You can do 2.5, 3.5, or 4 depending on you. You know that this pattern is on fold. I'm making mine 3 inches so that by the time I, open this open up, it will be about 6 inches. That is how wide I want this center front to be. Now I marked 3 inches down this way, and I'll be connecting it into a straight line, just as I'm doing like this. So after connecting this into a straight line, I'll go ahead and connect from these 3 inches that I came down by to my waistline with a curve. So if you have your curve ruler, just go ahead and place it this way. You just connect from that 3 by 3 inches to your waistline. If you don't have your curve, you can use your free hand to do this. So this is what I have. So this down part, this is not how it is going to be. This down part here is going to be gathers. We'll be using that part as a guide for our slash and spread. Now go ahead and cut out this pattern. Please note that this waistline, you're going to be replacing the dart that you took out, the 1 inch dart that you took out. Please go ahead and replace it at the waistline. I forgot to do mine on this pattern, but I surely did replace it while I was cutting out on my fabric. So please take notes. Now this is the bust dart. I'll go ahead and cut this open this way. I'm not cutting through to the end. When I get to that point, I'll go ahead to tape this down this way. So this is basically how to close down the bust dart. So I use my paper tape to just like hold this in place, and I'll go ahead to cut out the rest of the pattern. Now I'm cutting through the underbust this way. This curve that I made at the underbust, I'll go ahead and cut it out this way. And so for the dart, you are still going to be taping this down. That is after cutting. So now I'm cutting off the dart, and I'll be closing up this dart with my paper tape. So just take your time, because this is not the easiest thing to do. Just take your time and tape down the dart. So this is all for the front pattern. Now let's go ahead to draft out the back pattern. I have my shoulder line, my bust point, my shoulder to waist, my hip line, and also the length of my dress. Remember that the shoulder to waist at the back is shorter by 1 inch than the shoulder to waist at the front. It's just a difference of 1 inch, which we used for the bust that's at the front. So please take note. So I've gone ahead to take my neck width of 3 inches, just as we did for the front, and a neck depth of 1.5 inches. And I'm going ahead to connect this into a round neckline. Next, I'll go in by half of my shoulder measurement. I'll make a mark there. I'll come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope and I'll connect. For the armhole, I'll go ahead and divide my bust circumference by 6. I'll add 1.5 inches to that and I'll mark that. I'll place my bust measurement divided by 4 over here and I'll have my armhole this way. This is similar to what we did for the front. After confirming the measurement I have here, which is my bust measurement divided by 4, I'll go ahead and do the same thing at the waist. I'll take my waist measurement divided by 4. I'll mark. I'll do the same for my hip. My hip measurement divided by 4. I'll also mark. And I'll be connecting all these points with my ruler. After connecting, this is what I have. Next, I'll go in by my nipple to nipple measurement of 3.5 inches. I'll mark that at the bust line, the waistline, the hip line, and the length of my dress. And I'll be connecting this into a straight line. Next, I'll be taking in the dart. So at the waistline, I'll go out of this line here by half an inch on both sides. And I'll be slanting this to my bust points. Then at the hip line, I'll just go up from my hip line by 2 inches and I'll be connecting it this way. So for the side gathers, I will still go ahead and from the center of my pattern, I'll go ahead and mark 3 inches all the way. I'll mark 3 inches from the center, and from the waistline I'm also coming down by 3 inches, just like what I did for the front. Now I brought in my front pattern, and you can just go ahead and trace out what you have at that front pattern on the back this way, as you can see. So please note that this is a back pattern and there is going to be a zipper allowance. I didn't do that now. I'll be doing that on my fabric. That's I'll be adding the zipper allowance while cutting on my fabric. So having connected this into this curve this way, I'll go ahead and label this as my back pattern, and this is what I have. So I'll just go ahead and cut out this pattern this way. Please guys, if you have watched up to this point, please hit on the subscribe button, like this video. Also, you can drop your questions on the comment section. So this is the dart. I didn't cut out the dart part of this. I will be taking the dart on my fabric, so you can go ahead and do same. I'll keep this aside and I'll be bringing in the upper part of my front pattern. That is from the shoulder to the underbust area. So you know that the inspiration we are following, we have gathers at the shoulder and at the underbust area. So you're going to be making use of the slash and spread method to achieve this. So I'll go ahead and divide what I have here at this shoulder line by 2, and I will just be rolling a straight line this way. So after rolling this straight line, I'll go ahead and bring in a new piece of pattern paper. First of all, I will slash open. I will be slashing open on this line. I'll slash to the end, and this part is the center part of my front. If it was on fold, this part will be the center part, and I'll just go ahead and bring in a new piece of pattern paper, and I'll be slashing and spreading on this pattern. Now, first of all, I went ahead to rule out a slant line. You know that the shoulder area of our body is not straight. Even on our pattern, we have a slant at the shoulder area. So that is what I went ahead to mark. Now go ahead and place this first one, this first piece here. I'll go ahead and place it and pin it down with my mark with my office pin. Then next I'll determine how wide I want this slash and spread to be. So at this point I went out by 3 inches, and I'm bringing in the other parts of this front part, and at the bottom I'm slashing by 4 inches because I want the gathers at the bottom to be more than that of the gathers at the shoulder. I hope this makes sense. So just go ahead and pin up your pattern this way. Just make sure to pin up this pattern on this other pattern paper, and we're going to be tracing this out, leaving about half an inch seam allowance all round this pattern this way. So at the side, just I left about 1.5 inches at the side because we'll be needing allowance for joining at the side. But apart from the side, I left half an inch all round this pattern. So this is the other part of the front, and this is how I'll be gathering it to fit into this pattern. Please note that these both patterns are on fold. Now I've gone ahead to cut this out on my main fabric. As you can see, I added half an inch at the top. I added about 1.5 inch of stitching allowance. Remember that the dart that I did not replace, I also added it there. At this other side, I added half an inch, which I'll be using to join the gathers, that is the side gathers. Now this part is on fold. As you can see, this is what I have. Now go ahead and take out this other side. This is the part with the gathers, the slash and spread. Now go ahead and take out my pins. I'll take out my pins and I'll be opening up this fabric this way. I'll take the patterns aside and I will be opening up this way. So this is what I have. As you can see, this is why I came out from the center line by 3 inches, because I said I want the that is the center front, I want it to be about 6 inches wide. Now I've also gone ahead to open up the that is the upper part, that is from the shoulder to the underbust area, and this is what I have. You can see the V neckline right there. You can see how it is looking. So what I'll do next, I'll go ahead and pipe. I'll use this piece of fabric here. Initially I cut out 1.5 inches, but I later reduced it to 1 inch. So this is what I'll be using to pipe the V neckline of my dress. So this is it after piping. Next, I'll be drawing gathers at the bottom part and at the upper parts of this piece here. I will just from the side, I will go in by 5 inches, and from the center, I'll go in by 3 inches, and I'll be gathering only these areas. I'm not gathering all. So as you can see, this is what I have. Like I said, I did gathers for the upper part, that is the shoulder part and the bottom. But the bottom from the center, I just marked 3 inches, and from the side, I went in by 5 inches. So this is the only area that I'm gathering. But for the shoulder, I make gathers on all the shoulders. So after gathering, this is what I have. As you can see how it is looking. Now I'll bring in this center part, that is this other part of my dress this way, and I'll make notch at the middle. So after making this notch, I'll be bringing in the rope. So I cut out a rope, actually two ropes. I The length of this rope is about 20 inches and the width is 1.5. So this is what I have. So I'll place the ropes this way directly on the notch, one going towards the left and the other going towards the right. I'll use my pin to hold it this way separately in place before bringing the other piece, and I'll lay it on it. So once I was done pinning these ropes, I'll bring in these gathered parts. So from the center, I'm placing it this way to match up with that notch right there. So I took out the pin that I used to pin the rope, one of the rope, and I'll pin it through. So I will still use my pins to also pin this other side, making sure that the gathers fit into what I have right there. I hope you understand. So I'll do the same for the other side and I'll bring it back to show you what I have. So this is what I have. As you can see, my rope. You can see how it is looking neat. So you can just go ahead and tie this up whichever way you want. So this is what I have for the front so far. So for the back, I've gone ahead to cut out my back pieces. I've added allowance at the necessary areas. I also added 1.5 inches at the zipper area. Went ahead to take out the zipper bulge. The first thing I did was to measure my shoulder to half length. That is my shoulder to waistline. I make I made a mark there, and from my waistline I went in by 0.5 inch, and I'm just from that waistline I also went up by 6.5 inches. I marked there, and I went down by 6 inches. I marked there. Now the 0.5 inch that I'm taking out, I'm just slanting it to that 6.5 inches at the top and the 6 inches below, and I will just cut it out. I hope you understand. So what I'll be doing next is to be piping the neckline of this bag. So I went ahead to pipe the neckline. Then next I'll be closing up the zipper space with 1.5 inches allowance. Please, when you're closing up the zipper space, you will just have to use your tape to mark 1.5 inches all from the beginning to the end. So this is what I have after closing up the zip allowance. I've also ironed it out, and I also piped the neckline. This is how neat it is looking. So next thing I'll be doing is to be placing this back piece on the front pieces, and I'll be joining this at the shoulders. So this back shoulder is the guide I'll be using to like gather the front shoulder. I'll make sure to gather this front shoulder to fit in to this back shoulder. I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain. So after joining, this is what I have. I've also gone ahead to overlock the edges this way, as you can see. So the next thing I'll be doing is to be closing up these sides. So when I was cutting this, I added a sewing allowance of 1.5 inches. So that is the same allowance that I'll be using to close up the sides of my dress. You can go ahead and measure this to confirm, but I'll be using the sewing allowance of 1.5 inches because that is what I added. So this is what I have after closing up the sides. You can see how nice and beautiful my dress is coming to be. So this is actually coming together right now, as you can see. So what I will be working on next is the side gathers. So I have this piece of fabric here that I've already cut out for the side gathers. The width of this fabric is times 2 of the waist measurement that I am working with, and the length is enough to make up for the length of the dress. That is, after taking out the half length of 16.5 inches, what I have there should be 42, if you understand. So it's just perfect. So I have two of this for the both sides of the dress. So this is one of the fabric that I cut out for the side gathers. It is on fold this way. I folded it into two, and the open part is this one that you can see right now. So I'm going ahead to slash my pattern. Remember this pattern when we were drafting. This is the lower part of the pattern, that is from the waist to the length of the dress. So I'm placing it right on this piece of fabric this way, and I will be slashing and spreading. So initially I cut this out, I slashed into two places, but later I went ahead to like slash the other parts, making it into three. So I will be slashing this and arranging it on my piece of fabric this way before tracing it out. So please pay close attention to see how I'm doing this. Now, the reason I'm slashing this is to have like enough to gather while I'm sewing on the curvy parts of that dress. I hope you understand. So I will go ahead and use my scissors to trace this out. Now, as you can see on this pattern, the pattern is actually shorter. The reason is because while we were drafting, I explained earlier that the length of my dress is actually longer than what I have at the paper. So that is why you can see the space at the bottom there. Now go ahead and cut out this pattern this way. I'll cut out my fabric this way, and I'll keep this paper aside. Next thing I'll be doing is to notch the middle of this fabric. So I will take it to this side. I'll get the midpoint and I'll be notching this with my scissors. Now it is at that point that I will be sewing on my dress. So I will hold this notch together like this. I'll bring in the dress. I'll pick one side of the dress. You know, we have two sides to fix the side gathers. So this is the side seam of my dress. I've gone ahead to open it up, and I'll be placing this notch right on the side seam, right sides facing each other. Now you can use your pins to pin it down this way. Now I'm taking this to my sewing machine this way. I'll be making gathers. That is, I'll be making small pleats on my sewing machine. Now I'm aligning this notch at the fabric for the gathers and the side joining of my dress. I'll pin this down this way, as you can see. Now I'll start from one side through to the other side. So please pay close attention to see all that I will be doing in this video. This is the notch right here, and I'm going to take this through to the length of my dress this way. So when I start sewing, I'll start sewing from the length. You can see the way I'm holding it now. I'll now place this on my sewing machine. I'll be sewing with half an inch. So this is it that I'm showing you now. So I'll go ahead and sew through this length area, and before I get to the curvy part, I'll sew a little bit into the curvy part, let's say like maybe 2 inches, then I will stop there. Now this is the back side. You can see the zipper allowance right there. So this is the back side. I'll sew from the bottom, and when I get to the curvy part, I will sew a little on the curvy line, let's say like 2 or 1 inch, and I will just stop there. So I made a mark at where I'm going to stop sewing out. That is what I'm trying to explain. You can do like 2 inches or 1 inch after the curvy part. So I'm trying to show you. So from that point that I marked where I want to stop my straight stitch, I will start gathering. I'll go ahead and start making small small pleats to fit into the dress. That is this part that I have pinned together, the side seam and the notch. So I'll gather this to fit into this space here. I'll be doing this on the sewing machine. So do this carefully. If this is the method you are using to do yours, you can as well draw gathers on your sewing machine. Just use the a loose stitch to like draw gathers, then you decide how you want to sew this on your sewing machine. Now once you are done from the bottom of the dress to one notch, you are going to continue from the other bottom to the other notch, just as I have explained. And this is how it is looking like so far. So you're just still going to use the same method for the other side of the dress. Just take the pieces you are going to use for the side gathers, fold it into two this way and make a notch. So you're going to arrange it at this other part, that is the open part. You are going to be making that curve which is going to fit into the curvy part of your dress. Now you are still going to bring in the pattern, the lower part of the pattern that we had when we were drafting. You're still going to bring it in and use it to like make slash and spread so as to have that curve part. So when you bring it in, you're going to use it for your slash and spread. Now I've brought in the paper which I'll be using for the slash and spread. So this video is already becoming too long. I wouldn't want it to be too long. So just use the method we have used earlier to, slash and spread this and place on your fabric to cut out. It is almost see the same thing, and you are still going to be fixing the gathers and almost the same way I did, just the same way I did the other side. Now I've gone ahead to fix the other side gathers, and this is how beautiful my dress is coming to be. You can see it's looking really pretty. So the next thing I'll be doing is to be measuring the length of this to confirm the actual length that I am working with. So after measuring, what I have left is what I'll be using for the folding, that is for hemming of the dress. And I'll be fixing a zipper to the back of the dress. Remember I had closed it earlier while I was shaping. I will open up for the space I want to fix the zip, and I'll be fixing my zipper. So guys, for this dress I worked with just 3 yards and it is not so full. So adding this lining to just have a little bit of fullness as the gather side. So I have two of this lining. I have 1 yard which I divided into two. So I'll just go ahead and make some curve at the edge of the lining, just the way I folded the fabric for the gathers, and I notch one part and I also curve the other part. So this is how it looks like after turning with the lining. Adding the lining is completely optional. If you don't want to add a lining, if you don't want this fullness, this little bit of fullness that mine has, you can decide to skip the lining part. And this is how I added the lining. I placed the lining at the opposite side so as to have a neat finishing. As you can see, this is looking really beautiful. So if you have watched to this point, please hit on the subscribe button, like this video. I also went ahead to add a puff sleeve to the dress. As you can see, this is looking really beautiful. Please like and subscribe, share to your friends and your soulmates, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.